I've been doing Bible study with my friends, and there's a passage I like to talk about. It's from the book of John, chapter 5, the healing at the pool. So basically, Jesus sees a guy who's been sitting at a pool for 38 years, and this pool has healing properties. And this guy, he's limp. He can't walk. And every time he tries to like hobble his way into the pool, somebody else gets there first, and he sort of just sits on his mat moping. So Jesus sees him. He says, "Do you want to get well?" And the guy says, "Sir, I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I am trying to get in, someone else goes ahead of me." And Jesus says to him, "Get up, pick up your mat and walk." And once the man was cured, he picked up his mat and walked. So, with regard to this, there's the lesson to be drawn from this is that the guy had to pick up his mat. He had to pick up the safety that he had so readily clung to. There is a great comfort in being a victim. You can take a sense of pride in your sorrow. And it's a very common thing. Human psychology is not different today than it was 2,000 years ago. The aggregate balance may be different. People may be better. They may be worse. But the same psychological traits still run within us as a population and within the individual too, because everybody at some point has been pouting and been a victim. Everybody has stifled their own progress, as this man has. And for 38 years, which is a very long time, if you're talking, 0 AD essentially, or around that time, people didn't live that long. For 38 years, his whole life, essentially, he'd just been sitting there feeling sorry for himself. And with the help of Jesus's words, he was able to bring himself out of it. He had to pick his mat up, though. He couldn't try to hobble into the pool, as per my assessment, if he kept his mat on the ground. He couldn't have got up if he still had that safety, that refuge in which his victim identity was entrenched, still staying there. He had to pick it up and then walk on his own 2 feet and forge into a new life. Identity is extremely, extremely easy to cling to. I had a friend once who said that the most difficult addiction to break is the addiction to the center of your thinking, because it's thinking that creates all of these identities, right? If you look at an animal which doesn't think much, it's just living. Let's say there's a huge alligator. I went to this trail in Gainesville one day called the Lachua Trail, and my friend and I, over a course of a mile or so, walked. We saw a lake with like 50, 60 alligators, and then we'd walk on this grassy path. There were alligators on both sides in the trenches, and if the New Jersey part of me would have been scared about it, right? But the Florida part of me and the more adventurous side of me went there and actually felt safe, despite being surrounded by alligators. There, at the end of the road, at the very end, there was a boss gator, huge alligator, just sitting there chilling. Now, I don't know if alligators kill each other, but let's say they do. Let's say there's a smaller gator, and let's say there's a boss gator. And let's say the boss gator attacks and kills a smaller gator. So that smaller gator is just living his life, eating, hunting, whatever, sunning himself. Then the boss gator comes and starts fighting it. Within a matter of a few minutes, it's over. The little gator's dead, and the boss gator eats him. But there's no identity involved. It's simply natural behavior, right? Humans, on the other hand, have this tremendous ability to think. With thinking, we've created phones, internet, guitars, music, computers, televisions, cars, planes, science. The list goes on. Just if you live in a modern society, just look outside. All of that was created with thinking. So we've done tremendous things with it. But entrenched within humans as well is capacity for that thinking to go awry. So in the case of this victim guy, he's just sitting there feeling sorry for himself, and I'm sure there's story upon story upon story playing in his head for 38 years, day after day, about, I don't feel good, oh, everyone gets the pool before me, I can't go there, no one helps me, and it goes on. Now, why would anybody do that? What I just said sounds so negative, so whiny, so self-victimized. Why? Well, like, doesn't somebody want to be positive or transcendent or feel good, be filled with good emotions and good feelings and live a vibrant life? Well, of course they do. But when they have a sense of identity within this victimhood, they get safety from that. And why do people cling to identity? Because they feel unsafe. And the identity could be good, it could be bad. You could be a hero, or you could be a victim. You could be a villain. You could be a savior. You could be whatever. As soon as your mind latches onto an identity, it then creates, how does this person think? How does this person act? How does XYZ? And then it simply follows that script. And thing after thing after thing builds upon it. Now, people with victim identities, in a way, have a leg up, because they're able to, if they're able to see how bad it is, they can move beyond all identity and touch into their life force within, touch into the eternity within them, the consciousness. People with better identities, that they're less that are less obviously dysfunctional, don't exactly have this privilege. They focus on what they're doing, and their identity seems to work. It's not totally dysfunctional, but it's still an identity that they cling to, that stops them from making monumental jumps. So in the case of this limp guy at the pool, he took a monumental jump to go from 38 years of not walking to being able to walk, right? So I would take the moral of the story with regard to this, whether it was because of Jesus' power or because we can extract this more psychological explanation from it, whatever the case may be. When you have a victim mentality and you're able to let go of the seat at which that victim mentality sits, which in this case is the mat, tremendous things can happen. So Jesus says, "See, you're well again. Stop sinning or something worse may happen to you." And then the story ends. The guy walks off and lives his life. And hopefully he can live a life that's happy now. And he can see that now that he's made a monumental jump in his sense of self, that can continue into more and more and more things. So the question I posit to anybody is, what does the victim in you complain about? Because we all have it, no matter how successful. With the most rare of exceptions, we all feel ourselves a victim to some extent of fate, of other people, of things that could have gone better, of ways that we were wronged. He did this, she did this. It could be parents, it could be friends, it could be former romantic partners, it could be current romantic partners, it could be society, it could be another group of people, it could be another country. It could just be fate. What does the victim in you talk about or think about? How does it stifle you? How does it keep you from being happy? How does it poison your system? How good does it feel to have that sense of superiority? I'm a victim, this is wrong. Shouldn't have happened to me. How much strength does that make you feel? That strength is not strength. It's weakness and fear masquerading as strength. Real strength comes in forgiveness. And in that forgiveness is power and love and beauty to say to whoever it may be. Even if you don't say it to them directly, just say inside, I forgive you. Whatever you may have done, I forgive you. And I'll move on with my life. And I'll live as well as I can. That right there ends the victim mentality. That right there is the beginning of love. That right there is an expression of consciousness. That right there is the next step into a life of walking, which was previously crippled, figuratively speaking. That right there is happiness. And that right there can create very good relationships. And that right there is the beginning of a whole host of other things that can be forgiven. A whole host of other things that can be improved upon, rather than sitting in victimhood and resentment and a grievance. The final question is, in what ways are you crippled right now? And would you like to walk? And if you do, pick up your mat and go.